All right, let's dive into something truly fascinating today. We're going to explore a real paradox, a substance that comes from an ancient African root. On one hand, it's seen as a potential miracle cure for addiction. On the other, it's feared as a dangerous, toxic compound. It's a story that really makes you rethink what we know about medicine. So let's get right into it.
So let me just kick this off with a pretty wild question. What if you could take a single dose of something and it could stop severe drug addiction in its tracks? I mean, block withdrawal symptoms / cravings and keep you on the right path for months, maybe even a whole year. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right?
Well, here's the twist. The potential answer to that question doesn't come from some high-tech, sterile pharmaceutical lab. No, it comes from nature. To be specific, from the root of a shrub that grows in equatorial Africa. This is the incredible story of Ibogaine.
To really understand Ibogaine, you have to start at the source. We've got to go way back to its ancient origins, long before it ever saw the inside of a laboratory.
Okay, so what exactly is this stuff? Well, Ibogaine is what's called a psychoactive alkaloid. You can just think of alkaloids as these chemical compounds that plants make naturally. And this particular one is found packed into the root bark of the Tabernanthe Iboga plant. It's the main active ingredient that gives this plant all of its really unique properties.
You know, way before modern scientists started studying it for addiction, indigenous peoples in Central Africa already had a really deep connection with the Iboga root. They used it for all sorts of things, as a stimulant to fight off tiredness during long hunts, as a general health tonic, and yeah, even as an aphrodesiac. It was a real cornerstone of their traditional medicine.
But the journey Ibogaine took from being a traditional root to its place in the modern world, well, it's just full of twists and turns. It's a story packed with incredible promise, but also some really serious risks and a whole lot of controversy.
And this slide right here captures that paradox perfectly. Talk about a complete 180. In the middle of the 20th century, you could literally walk into a pharmacy in France and buy an Ibogaine-based drug called Lambarene. It was sold as a mental stimulant. But then, fast forward to the late 1960s, and it's pulled from the shelves and made illegal almost everywhere.
So you have to ask, what on earth happened? How does something go from being a legitimate over-the-counter medicine to a banned substance so incredibly quickly? Well, the answer is in its powerful, and I mean powerful, effects on both the body and the mind.
First things first, let's be absolutely clear about the dangers, because they are real. At high doses, Ibogaine is toxic. It can cause convulsions, a dangerous drop in blood pressure. It can even cause a person to stop breathing. But the single biggest concern, the one that scientists worry about the most, is its cardiotoxicity. It can actually mess with the heart's electrical rhythm, and that can be fatal. This risk is the #1 reason it's still such a highly controlled substance.
But it's not just the physical risks. There's also this incredibly intense psychological journey. And what's amazing is that studies are really consistent in describing the experience. It seems to happen in 3 distinct phases. It starts with this hours-long dream state where people report having vivid visions of past memories. That's followed by a much longer, more neutral period of just deep, deep reflection. And finally, there's a state of heightened awareness that can last for days. It is a profound and truly life-altering experience for many.
So given all those intense effects and the very real risks, you might be wondering, why is there this huge surge of scientific interest in Ibogaine right now? Well, the answer is in the growing mountain of evidence for its power to fight addiction from the inside out.
This quote from the research really gets to the absolute core of it. The potential to block withdrawal symptoms and crush cravings with just 1 dose, that's what makes Ibogaine feel so revolutionary. Those are the 2 biggest walls people hit that so often lead to relapse. The thinking is that it actually helps promote the growth of new connections in the brain, essentially helping to reset the very circuits that have been hijacked by addiction.
Let's really put that into perspective for a second. Standard treatments for something like opioid addiction, think methadone, often mean you're taking a dose every single day, sometimes for years on end. But the research on Ibogaine suggests it could shrink that whole acute detox process down to just a couple of days. That is a massive, massive game changer.
Now, it's really important for me to be clear here. We don't have those huge, gold standard, rigorous clinical trials just yet. But what we do have are a whole lot of observational studies, especially for opioid use disorder, and what they're finding is incredibly consistent.
So let's just look at some of the data. One study from 2018 found that the detox effects were still there a full year after treatment. Another study from that same year not only confirmed the anti-addiction effects, but also found that it helped reduce symptoms of depression. In a more recent one, It showed a huge drop in withdrawal and cravings in just 48 hours. You see the pattern here? Different studies, different groups of people, but the same promising results keep popping up.
And sometimes the results are just staggering. This number you see on the screen, 3. That represents 3 years of sustained abstinence from opioids for one patient in a case report, after just a single Ibogaine treatment. Another patient in that same report stayed clean for 2 years. Now, of course, these are individual cases, but they point to this incredible potential that has researchers so excited.
So, where does that all leave us? What's the path forward for a substance that seems to hold so much promise, but also carries so much risk? Here's kind of the snapshot of where we are. The potential is huge, and not just for opioids, but for a whole range of addictions. But the hurdles are also huge. That heart risk absolutely has to be solved, and we desperately need those large-scale clinical trials. The real opportunity, the thing a lot of scientists are working on, might be in creating safer, synthetic versions of Ibogaine, new compounds that give you all the benefits without all the danger.
Ultimately, the scientific consensus, while it's still very cautious, is definitely optimistic. The research we have so far, just like this quote says, it all points toward Ibogaine being a potentially effective therapy with these uniquely long-lasting effects. The question now isn't if, but how. How do we unlock that potential safely?
And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought. The story of Ibogaine is this powerful reminder that the next huge medical breakthrough isn't always going to be made in a lab. Sometimes the answers are already out there, waiting in nature, hidden in traditions that are centuries old. It really makes you wonder, if just one plant holds this much potential, what other secrets are still out there, just waiting for us to rediscover them? Thanks for joining me.